Welcome to Quilt Addicts Anonymous. I'm Stephanie Sepping. Today I'm going to teach you how to make block 7 of the Dimensions block of the month. This month we're making a lot of flying geese. So you guys should be experts at doing the stitch and flip method right now because we've done this a lot throughout the block of the month for Dimensions. So we're going to go through it again, show you how to do it just in case you need another refresher. Again, when you're cutting these, we're using the Kinkame shade, so we get all this color variation just by cutting the width of fabric in strip and then cutting it into rectangles from there. But what I always do whenever I'm cutting mine is I always lay them out in color order with darkest to lightest, with it going up, so that the lightest part, that the change is happening as it goes higher. That way it's a lot easier for me to keep it in order when I'm sewing, and a lot easier to keep the block looking the way it's supposed to, with the color changing gradually from piece to piece. Let's get started. So the first thing I'm going to do is put the needle in the center position. That's because we're going to be sewing along this line that I've pre-drawn from corner to corner on the wrong side of your solid fabric. And now I need to start sewing them to our flying geese. So I'm taking my little square and I'm lining it up so that my edges are nice and even with the edges of my rectangle here. I want to make sure that these are right in line, so as we sew just to the right side of this drawn line, that creates that triangle that we're going to stitch and flip open. Now keep doing that until you've sewn all of your rectangles. Trim our 1/4 inch seam. To do that, all I need to do is put the 1/4 inch line on my ruler on top of the seam that we just sewed, so that way I can trim exactly 1/4 inch away. And I'm saving all these triangles because we have an improvisationally pieced throw pillow to make. Now we're just going to press the little wing away from the big part of flying geese with the seam underneath our little square. Now we're going to repeat that process, this time sewing the little square even with the other side of our rectangle to finish up our flying geese. All right, time for another round of trimming and pressing, and then we're ready to sew this guy together. All right, we've gone over our tips on how to make sure you never lose the points of your flying geese in a lot of the other videos for Dimensions block of the month, but I'm going to do it again just so that way you can make sure that they're all absolutely perfect. I'll show you on this one because it's going to be really easy to see against that dark fabric. So you can see that your thread makes an X when it's sewn together. You can really see it really well with that white thread against that dark blue fabric. So what I want to do when I'm sewing is to make sure that my needle is just 1 needle width to the right of where this thread X is. And as long as I'm just to the right of it instead of right on top, or definitely not on the left, then I will always be able to see that point. It'll be right in the exact right spot. Now, if you've done this right, that's going to be exactly 1/4 inch away from the edge of your fabric. But in case you were off just a little bit, it's okay. What you want to do is you just want to kind of guide your presser foot in a little bit, so that way the needle is always going to be just to the right of that thread X. And then if you need to jog back over to get the fabric even with the edge of your presser foot again, just do that slowly after you pass that middle. I would rather have a little bit of wave in there every time rather than lose that point, because that people will notice. They're not going to notice a little wave. So I need to set my sewing machine back to a 1/4 inch stitch setting because we're to the actual piecing part. I mean, obviously we've been piecing to this point, but now is the point where the quilt math really matters. So make sure you set your sewing machine up for that 1/4 inch stitch, and we're going to start sewing these guys together. See that the stitch line is just to the right of that triangle. It's a little far right on this one. I'm definitely going to see a little bit of the gray, but I'd rather see that than lose my point, so I'm happy with this one. This one's probably a little bit better example of where it's just one needle width to the right of where that thread X comes together, and this one's going to be absolutely perfect when we open it up. Let's check them out. Oh yeah, that's a good join. Definitely happy with this one. So now we've got our 2 rows together, and we need to pin our rows together so we can sew our block together. And we've got a lot of points to match up. So I'm going to show you a pinning technique that should help you get those points right where you want them the first time. We've used this pinning technique before. It's a 2 pinning method. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to stick a pin right out above where the tip of this triangle is, and I'm going to put it right where the tip of the other one is, and that way those seams are going to be right where I want them to be, and the points are going to be right where I want them to be. Okay, so holding this pin straight up and down, I'm going to take my other pin and I'm going to use that one to push them together like that. All right, we're going to do that again as we go through the rest of these. Finding the tip on both sides. The seams are going to butt right up next to each other. Making it easier. Let's get this final one in place here. All right, so we've got our pin in right at the tip, and then I'm going to put it right in at the tip of this triangle as well. Holding that straight up and down, put the pin in the other side. Now when I sew this together, I should be right where I need to be on all of those points so that we don't lose any. Now I'm waiting to pull my pin out until my needle is firmly lodged inside the other half of the seam allowance. Then it kind of acts as a pin, holding everything in place so that nothing shifts on me. Let's get this corner lined up, finish it up. All right, it's time for our moment of truth to see how this went. Not too bad. We didn't lose any points, so that's good. There is a little bit of extra space on these. So if I wanted to, I could go in there and I could take a little bit deeper seam on these points. This one's pretty good, I'm happy with that one. But if for some reason you weren't happy with any of these, all you would have to do is pick from here to here. You don't have to unpick the entire seam, just about maybe an inch or so on either side. Readjust, repin, and you're good to go. I'm gonna go ahead and press this because I'm happy with it the way it is. Just like every other block in this quilt, I'm finishing off with a little bit of Mary Ellen's Best Press to help it lay nice and flat, so all those triangles are just absolutely as flat as can be when we go to quilt it. Well, this is it. We've got block 7 finished. I think this is one of my favorites because you can really see the color change in the Kinkame shades really clearly. That just happen naturally as you cut this apart. This is all one strip of fabric. Isn't that so cool? Loving it. Thank you so much for watching the tutorial for block 7 of the Dimensions Block of the Month quilt. If you like this pattern and you'd like to make it, you can get it at shop.quiltaddictsanonymous.com. We also have a limited supply of kits available, so you can get that, and it will have all the Kinkame shades and the American Made Brand Solid that I'm using when I'm making these demos. Thanks so much for following along, and happy quilting!